name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Christ is in our midst. So it wasn't too long ago, I did a business blessing for someone who opened up a new restaurant. And as I walked in, it was more of like a sports-themed restaurant, and they had like the neon signs up on the walls and different things. And they had one particular logo from a company that sells a particular wine, or whatever you want to call it, Jägermeister. Have you ever heard of that? I'm sure some of you have some bad experiences with that, right? And as I looked at it, I looked up and I saw I'm spritzing walking through, and I look and I see it's a, does anybody know what the logo is? If you do, then you really have maybe an issue with Jägermeister, right? If you really know what it looks like. But anyways, let me just divert here a second and say that the logo is a deer with its antlers up, and inside the middle of the antlers is a cross. So as I was going, I stopped and I said, "What is that?" And they said, "That's Jägermeister." I said, I don't know what it tastes like or whatever. I said, "What's the story with the logo?" And they said, "I don't know." So in looking it up, Jägermeister, the word in German, actually means hunting master, or master of hunting. And the person who invented this particular drink was a Christian who loved to hunt. And the reason he picked that logo goes back to the 2nd century in the saint that we remember today. And that saint is right back in the back of the church there. If you see the white horse, I'm going to see if my laser pointer, I really need a heavy-duty laser pointer, so if anyone has one or knows where to get one, please let me know. All right, so in the back corner you see the horse with the white horse and the saint sitting on the horse. If you look up on the mountain, it's going to be impossible for the front over here to see, but if you look on the mountain, you'll see a deer, and inside the deer's antlers is the cross inside the antlers of the deer. There's also, his name is Saint Efstathios, who is the patron saint that we celebrate today. There's also a Saint Hubert, who was later in the 8th, 9th century, right around there, who was also had a vision of an animal with a cross in its antlers. But the reason I bring that up today is because I saw that, and I'm like, the only place I've ever seen, that cross in between the deer was in that icon, and I figured it had to be some connection there, and there is. This man loved to hunt, and he knew the story of Saint Efstathios and made that the logo and the patron saint for hunters. But what's the story of Saint Efstathios today? Let me just take a minute to talk about it, since I brought up the icon and you see it there. Saint Efstathios his name before he became a Christian was Placidus. Placidas, common spelling. Anybody named Placidus in here? I don't think so, right? Placidus was a hunter. He was a military personnel as well. He was known for being victorious in battle. That's why he's dressed as a soldier. As he is hunting one day, he has this vision of this deer that he's about to kill, and the deer has a cross in between its antlers, and he sees that, and he hears a voice from heaven say, "Go to this particular priest and take your wife and your children, and you're going to be baptized as Christian." So he does. He goes, he takes his wife and his 2 sons, he becomes baptized. He goes back to the place after his baptism and goes to thank God for this great gift of his baptism, and he realized how much he was missing not being a Christian. He bows down on the ground and he prays and he thanks God, and then he hears again from God, "You're going to go through some terrible struggles, but I'm here to strengthen you." And he's warned. Now, he's a soldier. He's been through difficult times, but you can imagine, what is he thinking about these struggles? He goes back and he starts to become persecuted. And also, his wife was stolen by barbarians. She was abducted by barbarians. And then he goes to cross a river, and he has his 2 young sons, and Saint Efstathios was a strong soldier. He grabs his one son, he's walking across the river, he leaves his one son there, he's walking across the river, and he sees that a lion has now grabbed his other son who's on the shores. He's in the middle of the river. So he goes, he puts his son down on this side, and he goes back running for the other son. The lion takes the son off, and then as he looks this way, a wolf had taken his other son. So now, within a very short amount of time, he lost all his family. His wife was gone. His kids were taken by animals. And he now, as the fathers of the church write about his life and some of the commentaries about his life, they said it was his faith that kept him from just laying in the water and letting the water carry him away. I mean, he lost everything. His 2 kids he saw taken, his wife was taken. So then he goes back and they say he's found, they search for him, they find him, and they say, we need you to come back and to be a soldier to fight against these barbarians. He does. He's victorious in his battle. And then he ends up finding his wife. And after finding his wife, he realizes too, he finds out that his children were saved from these animals by some of the local people, and then he's reunited with his children. So St. Efstathios now has become victorious in battle. He's working for the ruler at the time. He's got his wife back. He's got his kids back. Everything's going good. And a ruler, you think if they were victorious in battle, they said, this is great. Come on, we're gonna celebrate. We're gonna elevate you. We're gonna make a big deal about it. And if you think about the train with that soldier who was on the train, the stone, who fought off the terrorists on the train with the other individuals, you could see a bunch of different award ceremonies, promotions, France acknowledging him, the United States acknowledging. So the same thing was with St. Efstathios. He conquers these barbarians. They bring him in. They say, come on, now we're going to honor you. But first, before we honor you, we want you to come pray to the gods at the temple. Offer your sacrifice to the gods, because they're the ones that helped you win. And he says, I can't do that because I'm a Christian and I don't believe in that. So what happens now? He's tortured, his family's tortured, and eventually he's put in a metal bull or whatever it is. It's heated up, and he, his wife, and his 2 children are martyred inside this furnace, if you will. And when their bodies were removed, they were not harmed. They weren't burned up or anything. They were just like as if they were sleeping. So what is the story for today? What do we get from his life? It sounds great. Then it sounds terrible. Then it sounds great. Then it sounds terrible. And it's a really something where we have to think about what is the message of St. Efstathios' life. The message of his life is this, that God calls us, each and every one of us, he calls us to follow him. And in coming back and thanking God for his gifts that he gives us and asking him for his grace, what does he do? He gives us the insight of what we are about to encounter, and also gives us the strength to encounter those things as well. So if you think about St. Efstathios, he could have, he goes back to thank God for his baptism and then the baptism of his wife and his kids. And as he's going across the river and sees his son being taken, and then as he drops his other son off and he's in the back of the river, had it not been for God saying, you're going to go through a lot of things, but I'm here to strengthen you. He could have said, you know what, God has abandoned me. God doesn't love me. He baptized us. He made us get baptized, and now we're all gone. He could have given up, and he didn't. He realized that the struggle was yet to come, and he did not lose hope. He did not lose faith in God. Then he realized, too, that even with those losses, those worldly losses, he didn't lose hope. And when he comes to the point where his whole family is going to be martyred, he again strengthens them and says, don't lose hope. Look what we've been through already. Look at the struggles we've been through, and what is God calling us to be? And now he had to know at that point what the life of the martyrs were, and that struggle that the early Christians had just to stay alive when they became Christians. He knew that. All the soldiers knew that. That's why we have so many soldiers in the church. St. Demetrius, we have St. George over here. St. Efstathios, St. Minas, right next to St. Efstathios in the back of the church. There's multiple soldiers in the church. St. Theodore is right there, dressed like soldiers. We have all these soldiers in the church who knew exactly what was going on. They knew that their government was persecuting Christians. They knew that there was a lot of corruption, there was a lot of martyrdom, there was a lot of stealing, looting, all those things that were happening. So when he became a Christian, and when all these soldiers became Christians, they knew what was in store for them. And I think that in today's day and age, when we become Christians, we think, what are we going to get? Right? We're going to get a gift from our new at Easter, Christmas, our birthday, and our name's day, right? That's what we think we're going to get, right? Look at, I hear the commentary up in the front, yeah, and sometimes, when we graduate. But if somebody said to you, we're going to baptize your child, and when they're baptized, they're going to be martyred. Chances are you're going to die because of being baptized. How many of us would really say, okay, let's do it. Let's have a big party. Let's go to, the Carlisle or wherever, Basil's restaurant or whatever for our reception. It's going to be great because we're going to party, because chances are in 6 months we're going to be killed by, the mayor or the ruler of the town. We don't have that in this day and age. In the early days of the church, they knew exactly what they were going to encounter. Some stayed firm, some did not. But as the writings of the church say, that where are the relics of those who gave up, right? Where are the bodies? Where are the sites? Where are the stories? Where's the icons of those who gave up? Of the people who put something here, put something there, realized they were empty and just said, I give up, and lay and die in a river. Where are their relics? Nowhere. Where are they in the kingdom of heaven? Nowhere. Where are they in the remembrance of the church? Nowhere. So when we look at his life, and when you look at your life today, and you take an inventory, you say, what am I going through? What am I suffering with? What are my problems? It's very easy to give up. And it's very easy to say, because we failed once, that we're a failure. Or that we couldn't do something right, and we fell on our face with it, that we're a failure and we should give up. And there's a phrase that says, the only time you become a failure is when you fail to try again, when you stop trying. So St. Efstathios' life today is a reminder to us that in your suffering, and I know we all have sufferings, we all have problems, we all have people who are sick. You might be the person who's sick. You might have an awful job. You might have parents that are just difficult to take care of. You want to help them, they don't want you to help them. You might be a parent that's difficult for your kids. You might have problems with your neighbors. You might be upside down on your house. You might have a bunch of different issues of not only abuse problems, but maybe you have other issues that are going on. Maybe your time is finite, and you know that, and you're scared to share that with someone. Whatever those things are, we all have something going on. We're here today, and you continually come here because, as St. John Chrysostom says, this is the spiritual hospital. This is where we come broken. This is the ER room. That's why when kids cry in church, I don't say they need to go, right? Because have you ever been in an emergency room? Is it Kenny G music and everybody walking around with, eating pizza and drinking Coke and smiling and on roller skates? No, it's terrible, right? You hear people screaming, you hear people crying, you see, rushing, you hear beeping and, code blue or code red or whatever the things are that are going on in the hospital. It's a place where people are injured and they're coming for traumatic treatment. And that's why we're here, for that traumatic treatment. But what does St. Efstathios remind us to do today is don't give up. Don't give up because you come to the doctor once. Don't say, how many of you have been to a doctor one time and you go and it's all over, right? Maybe if you have a sinus infection, but how many times have you been somewhere where you have to go back and, we're going to do this test, or we're going to go back, or we got to check your levels again, or we got to do this, whatever. You go back again and again and again to hone in on what the problem is. That's why consistent prayer in God's house helps us to hone in on our problems, to hone in on what our traumatic incidents are that have affected us, and to not give up. To not say, you know what, it's just too much. I can't take it. Everything's going wrong in my life. Why does God hate me so much? And I've heard these things. Why has God forgotten me? Why does he hate me? Why does he not listen? Why is he not helping me? Why is this taking so long? And the reason for those answers are different for every single scenario. Why am I stuck by a train? You could be saying, I'm going to be late. I'm stuck by this train. But what do you know about if you had gone a few minutes earlier? What would have happened? We don't know those answers. God knows those things. So sometimes the barriers in front of us that slow us down are for our own good. And sometimes when we get fast-tracked through things, that's also God pushing us in a certain way to get us through something. But the key is not to stop trying, not to give up, not to say, you know what, it's just too much. The other day I was talking with someone, and they had just had a very difficult time, and they said, I heard once that God says, let me see if I can say this right, that don't ask for your problems to be taken away, the weight of your worries to be taken away. Ask for a stronger back. And I said, well, yes and no. I mean, we do ask God to take things away from us. But what's a stronger back in the church? How do we get a stronger back in the church? Do we lift more weights? Do we do squats or curls or whatever? No, we don't. That's not the strength that we need. The strength we need, how do we get a stronger back? Is by prayer. By praying, God, help me through this. And by not giving up. By not throwing our hands up and saying, that's it, forget it. This is pointless. They don't listen. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm never going to get anywhere. Continue to strive and to push forward. And use the example of St. Efstathios, that with his whole family being lost, being reunited, that he never lost the fact of the greatness of the kingdom of heaven, never lost sight of that, and said, you know what, even in my suffering, and if we go to our death, this is what God has said that he's strengthening us for. So let's go. We knew this when we became Christian, and now we're walking that path. So persevere and struggle, for your reward will be great, as we read in the writings of the church. May God continue to strengthen you. May he give you patience, strength, and for stronger back, just say some stronger prayers. Amen.